The bribery allegations of Joe Biden and his family keep getting worse. It turns out there's a lot more evidence than people originally thought. I'm Zach, I'm an accountant, and I'm going to walk you through all the details of the scandal this week on Wolves in Finance. Just this week, IRS whistleblower testimony revealed that they have a text message between Hunter Biden and Communist Party official Henry Zhao. This is shocking. The text reads, "I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment has not been fulfilled. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand, and now means tonight. And Z, if I get a call or text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang, or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me and every person he knows, and my ability to forever hold a grudge, that you will regret not following my directions. I am sitting here waiting for the call with my father." Photos have since surfaced from the same day of the text showing both Hunter Biden and Joe Biden near the same location, further corroborating the text message as true. This is evidence that both Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were involved in bribery, money laundering, conspiracy, and treason. Let us go back to the beginning, because I think a lot of people forget what started this whole thing. In 2013, Hunter Biden rode on Air Force Two on a trip to China. During the trip, Hunter Biden met with a Chinese banker named Jonathan Lee. At the same time, Joe Biden met for 5.5 hours with President Xi Jinping. 10 days after this trip, a new business was formed called BHR Partners. Hunter Biden sat on the board of this new Chinese company. Guess who is the CEO of BHR Partners? Jonathan Lee, the same banker that Hunter Biden met. In 2016, while Joe Biden was still vice president, BHR Partners was involved in the sale of a cobalt mine in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This was one of the world's richest cobalt mines. It was sold from Freeport-McMoRan, an American company, to the Chinese company China Molybdenum. Cobalt is an essential ingredient used in batteries for electric vehicles. After this sale, if America wants more electric vehicles, they're going to have a hard time getting them without going through China. In 2017, Hunter Biden then invested in a 10% ownership of BHR Partners for $420,000. This was the same year that Hunter Biden sent the text message to Henry Zhao, who was also an investor in BHR Partners. In 2020, Joe Biden became president. In 2022, Joe Biden passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which included $369 billion in climate and energy provisions. I'm still not entirely sure how these investments were supposed to reduce inflation. This caused some concern. It seems like Joe Biden is passing laws that would benefit his family and China at the expense of the American people. When this criticism came up, Joe Biden said he never spoke to his son about his business dealings. Let us think about this. Remember the last time you took a trip with your father? If you and your dad took a trip to China, and you were 10 days away from closing a massive business deal with a Chinese company, does it seem normal that you would never mention it? I don't believe his story. Then Hunter Biden explained that when he met with Jonathan Lee on the trip with his dad, that it was a friendly visit and they did not talk business about the company that was to be set up in 10 days. I don't believe that either. Throughout Joe Biden's first year as president in 2021, Press Secretary Jen Psaki said that Hunter Biden was working to unwind his 10% stake in BHR Partners. Then, Hunter Biden's lawyer came out and made a statement that Hunter Biden no longer holds any interest directly or indirectly in either BHR or Scanateles, the LLC wholly owned by Hunter Biden that held his 10% stake. Then, investigative reporters uncovered that 2 independent services for business records on Chinese companies showed that Hunter Biden still holds a 10% equity stake in BHR Partners. So Jen Psaki was lying. Hunter Biden's lawyer was lying. Why is everyone lying about this company? It is still unclear whether Hunter Biden still owns 10% of BHR Partners. Let me explain what this means. It was last reported that BHR Partners held $2.1 billion in investments. Hunter paid $420,000 for a 10% stake. So if he sold his stake in the company, he would receive $210 million. That is almost 50,000% return on investment. This makes me so mad. This week, I filled up my gas tank, and when I looked at the bill, I almost had a heart attack. Have you experienced this? Skyrocketing gas prices are the result of this so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden is making hundreds of millions of dollars, and not just Hunter, potentially Joe Biden himself. BHR Partners sold the cobalt mine in 2016. The very next year, in 2017, Hunter Biden was working to create a second Chinese company called CEFC. One of the emails revealed from Hunter Biden's laptop showed the funding of this company included Hunter Biden holding 10% for the big guy. Navy veteran and former employee Tony Bobulinski came forward to explain that the big guy referred to Joe Biden. If this was the arrangement for CEFC, I want to know the arrangement for BHR Partners. How much of the $210 million payout will Hunter Biden be holding for the big guy? Fast forward to today. When Republicans took control of Congress, they started investigating claims that the Biden family has been accepting bribes from foreign countries. They released information from bank records that showed more than $10 million of money transfers from Romania and China. The investigation really heated up when a whistleblower came forward claiming that the FBI had in their possession a document called an FD 1023 form. The document described more bribes to the Biden family. It alleges the founder of Burisma, the Ukrainian oil company, named Mykola Zlochevsky, paid $5 million to Hunter Biden and $5 million to Joe Biden. This was at the same time that Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma and separately paid up to $1 million per year to serve from 2014 to 2019. At the same time, Joe Biden used U.S. funds to pressure Ukraine to fire their top prosecutor from investigating corruption at Burisma. The FD 1023 form specifically says that Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma as part of the bribe to convince Joe Biden to get the prosecutor fired. In case you don't remember, here is Joe Biden at the time talking about firing the prosecutor.
I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting $1 billion. I said, you're not getting $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
The document also contains shocking statements, like that it would take 10 years for all of us to find out the payments made to the Bidens because of how many bank accounts there were. But the most shocking statement of all was that the memo used the term the big guy to refer to Joe Biden. That was the same phrase used for Joe Biden that was previously included in the email for the Chinese company CEFC. These allegations against Joe Biden are apparently very credible. This is not some random informant. This was a confidential human source that the FBI has used on numerous previous occasions for other cases. This source is considered so valuable that the FBI has paid this person over $200,000 as an informant for over a decade. So he must have been giving them legitimate information. It is shocking that the FBI would have such serious allegations against Joe Biden and do nothing. If the FBI is not going to do anything with the information, Congress can. Congress subpoenaed the form, and then the strangest thing happened. The FBI refused to turn over the document. They just said, "No, we're not going to give it to you." Congress then threatened to hold the head of the FBI, Christopher Wray, in contempt of Congress if he did not turn over the document. Wray still said no, with the excuse that the informant might be killed if this information was revealed. So this really confuses me. If the informant might be killed, doesn't that mean the info is legitimate? If there was nothing to the allegations, there would be no reason to kill them. And if the allegations were true, why wasn't the FBI doing anything about it? The document was not classified, so why couldn't Congress see it? The whole thing seems pretty corrupt. It seems like the FBI is covering for Biden's crimes, but it gets worse. The day that Congress was about to hold Christopher Wray in contempt, the FBI let them see the form, but only the Oversight Committee and only a redacted version inside a SCIF. But it gets worse. Senator Grassley spoke on the Senate floor and revealed that he had read a version of the form before it was redacted, and the FBI had redacted out a key detail. There are allegedly tape recordings of conversations proving the bribery. There were 15 recordings of Hunter Biden and 2 recordings of Joe Biden. The person had kept these tapes as a type of insurance policy. So this means that not only is there hard evidence somewhere of bribery by Joe Biden, someone in Ukraine could have something to blackmail the President of the United States. If the U.S. does not do what Ukraine wants, they could reveal the evidence. Why would the FBI hide this? And it is also unclear, how did Senator Grassley know about the redacted portion? How long have people known about this? It turns out the information was also reviewed by Bill Barr, the Attorney General for President Trump. And rather than start an investigation, Bill Barr sent it to the Delaware office where it has sat doing nothing. It seems that everyone knew about this. Why did no one tell us? I feel like this would have been useful for people to know about during the last election. There is something about these allegations that no one has been talking about. We now have information about bribery from Romania, Ukraine, and China. But there is a difference between these countries. China is an adversary of the U.S. Just this week, China announced that they are deploying troops to Cuba, only 100 miles from the U.S. This is in response to the U.S. stationing 100 troops in Taiwan to train their soldiers. If any of you are watching from Florida, are you ready for this? If Chinese troops were to invade Florida, how would we handle that? All of this makes it pretty clear that China is an adversary of the U.S. That means that if Joe Biden received money from China, it is worse than just a bribe. It would be treason. Treason is the only crime that is written into the Constitution, Article 3, Section 3, Clause 1. In the U.S., treason is often punishable by death. Now, just to be crystal clear, I am not calling for any kind of violence against the president, and I am certainly not suggesting that anyone should take matters into their own hands. Congress has procedures in place to deal with these kinds of situations. U.S. Representative Lauren Boebert announced impeachment proceedings on the floor this week. Here are the articles of impeachment for abuse of power and dereliction of duty. But the text of the bill only mentions Joe Biden's failure to secure the southern border of the United States. Previously, Marjorie Taylor Greene also introduced articles of impeachment against Joe Biden for dereliction of duty during the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. But while the Afghanistan withdrawal was horrible, and the situation at the southern border is horrible, I'm not sure they are impeachable offenses. My question is, what is Lauren Boebert doing? Why isn't she doing more? What is Marjorie Taylor Greene doing? Why isn't she doing more? Where is the bribery charge? More importantly, where is the charge for treason? Now, I expect that some people might argue in the comments that treason can only happen after an official declaration of war by Congress. I disagree. The last time that Congress issued a declaration of war was World War II. Since then, we have had the Vietnam War, the Iraq War, the war in Afghanistan. The U.S. still has enemies, and the reason that treason is called out in the Constitution is we do not want our leaders taking money from our enemies to sell out the American people. China is our adversary. World War III has been trending multiple times this year, and our enemies in World War III would be Russia and China. If Joe Biden taking money from China is not treason, it's still something worse than bribery, and bribery was already bad enough. The saga continued this week when Hunter Biden pled guilty to tax and firearm charges. He failed to report over $1.5 million of income to the IRS and illegally obtained a firearm. The details of the plea deal that have been leaked is that Hunter Biden will receive misdemeanor tax charges and the felony gun charge will be dismissed if Hunter agrees to 2 years of probation. This seems like prosecutorial misconduct. It is unheard of for someone to receive such a light sentence from these charges. Let's look at the gun charge. Hunter is charged with lying on an ATF 4473 form when he bought a gun. This is the form you have to fill out saying that you are not using drugs. At the top of the form, it says that violations are punishable by up to 15 years imprisonment and or up to a $250,000 fine. And Hunter is receiving probation? Maybe that is because the prosecution has a weak case. But no, that's not true, because we have photographs from Hunter Biden's laptop that shows him smoking crack and holding his gun. This seems to be a pretty clear case. Does it seem fair to you that he is only receiving probation? Let me give you another example. Pamela Hemphill is a 69-year-old grandmother from Boise, Idaho, and she is suffering from breast cancer. She carried a small flag and walked through the Capitol building during the January 6th protests. She spent 2 months in prison for her crimes. Let me ask you, does that seem fair? Does this seem like there is an unequal application of justice? It does to me. Now let's talk about the tax charges. Here is some accounting advice. Do not do what Hunter Biden did. Do not cheat on your taxes, because there are so many different ways that the IRS can come after you. For someone not to report $1.5 million of revenue on their taxes, that is called tax evasion. One of the claims from the whistleblower is that Hunter Biden would buy prostitutes and then write that off as a business expense. That is illegal. It is almost unbelievable for someone not to go to prison for this. Remember that just last month, we found out that the entire team at the IRS was removed from the Hunter Biden probe at the request of the Department of Justice. It seems like to get this plea deal, the DOJ had to remove everyone who did not agree. Not only that, the whistleblower testimony showed that the IRS agents were never given the FD 1023 form from the FBI discussing the payments to Hunter Biden from Ukraine. This was the same form that Christopher Wray was trying to hide from Congress. No one has actually read the plea deal yet, so we don't know the actual details of what was agreed to. However, there is one promising thing. In the press release issued by the Department of Justice, they include the phrase, "The investigation is ongoing." This would suggest that the plea deal does not cover all the potential charges. If it did, they would not have included this sentence. So there is still the possibility that the DOJ can pursue charges against Hunter Biden for treason. But there is a part of this story that a lot of people are missing. The FBI has had all this information about wrongdoing by the Biden family and yet has been working so hard to protect them. Why? They're not just ignoring it, they are actively working to cover it up. The cover-up by the FBI is worse than the crime. I think I know why they're acting this way. There is someone named Miles Gual being held in prison in New York. I think he is the key to this whole thing. He is the number one enemy of China because he speaks out against President Xi Jinping. Miles Gual is being held in prison without bail before his trial for fraud. But the case against him is the weakest fraud case I have ever seen. I made another video walking through all the details of his case if you're interested, and I will leave the link in the description down below. But what is so strange about his situation is they are holding him in prison without bail. This is just so unusual. Bernie Madoff committed one of the largest frauds of all time. He was let out of prison on bail, waiting for his trial. Sam Bankman-Fried is currently charged with one of the largest frauds of all time. He was let out of prison on bail, waiting for his trial. 2 months ago, 2 people were arrested in New York for being Chinese spies. Actual Chinese spies were arrested. They were let out on bail within hours of being arrested. Isn't it strange that Miles Gual is still being held in prison based on weak fraud allegations? I think he's being kept in prison to shut him up. Do you know what else is strange? Do you know who used to be Miles Gual's lawyer? Christopher Wray. The same Christopher Wray who is now the head of the FBI. You have to admit, this is getting a little strange. So let's take a closer look at Christopher Wray. Before Christopher Wray became the head of the FBI, he was a partner at a law firm called King and Spalding. At the law firm, he was making $6.3 million per year. This is very strange. Partners in law firms generally make a lot of money, but they don't make that much money. When accountants look for fraud, one of the first things they look for is someone getting paid a lot more money than is normal for that type of job. So for instance, the American Bar Association released statistics that show that the average partner at the top 200 law firms in the US earned $1.054 million per year in 2019. How much did Christopher Wray make again? $6.3 million, more than 6 times as much. That's strange. There are only a handful of lawyers in the entire country that get paid that much. What was Christopher Wray doing that made so much money? Apparently, he was working for the Chinese Communist Party. That's why. We know this from comments from Nicole Tsai, spokesperson for the new federal state of China. Christopher Wray dropped Miles Gual as a client to go work for a CCP-owned company called the HNA Group. HNA Group is controlled by Wang Qishan, the former vice president of the People's Republic of China. HNA Group had a multi-billion-dollar contract with the law firm King & Spalding. That is why Christopher Wray was making so much money. So here's the chain of events. Christopher Wray drops Miles Gual as a client. He makes millions of dollars through his contract with the Chinese Communist Party, and when he becomes head of the FBI, he arrests Miles Gual and holds him in prison without bail. Doesn't that seem strange? Shouldn't someone in Congress ask the head of the FBI why he is imprisoning his former client? I would like to know that. Wouldn't you like to know that? Now, just for clarification, as I mentioned, this information came from Nicole Tsai, spokesperson for the new federal state of China. This is a lobby group created by Miles Gual with the goal of overthrowing the Chinese Communist Party. I have not been able to verify this information with a second source, so it might be biased, as they have their own agenda. However, I do not think we should dismiss these claims so quickly because their information has turned out to be correct in the past. During the pandemic, this was the same group who came out and said that the virus came from a lab leak in Wuhan, China. Just this week, it was revealed that patient 0 was identified as Ben Hu, a scientist at the Wuhan Institute of Virology who was performing research on how coronaviruses infect humans. We think he was the first person to get infected with the virus. So it turns out this group, led by Miles Gual, was right about the virus this entire time. Why didn't we listen to them? Maybe we should start paying attention to what they have to say this time, because it seems like they have some way to get information from inside the Chinese Communist Party. I don't know how they do it, but somehow they are doing it. And all of these allegations would be so easy to verify. Why don't we just ask Christopher Wray? Why was he making so much money as a lawyer? Was he taking money from the Chinese Communist Party? Why is he putting his former client in prison? One of the biggest questions in all of this is why has Christopher Wray been working so hard to protect Joe Biden? Why did he refuse to turn over the 1023 form to Congress? Why did he redact the information? Why has he not been investigating any of the leads against Joe Biden? I think it is possible that Joe Biden is not the only person committing treason. Christopher Wray might also be committing treason. I do not think that Republicans realize that in this situation, they hold all the cards. All this could be revealed just by asking simple questions. Here's what Congress should do. I think they should bring Miles Gual from prison to the Capitol and ask him 2 questions. Is there a connection between Joe Biden and the Chinese Communist Party? And has Joe Biden committed treason? I don't know what Miles Gual knows, but I have a feeling that he can answer these 2 questions. I would like to find out. Wouldn't you? Christopher Wray is trying so hard to shut this guy up. It only makes me think that Miles has something important to say. In order to convict someone of treason, you need 2 witnesses. That's why I believe Miles Gual is so important. We already have 1 witness in Tony Bobulinski. Depending on what Miles Gual knows, he could be witness number 2. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think that Joe Biden is guilty? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, please share this video. The only way that people hear this information is if you email it, put it on social media, and tweet it out. Get this information out there, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. There are more videos coming up that you don't want to miss. I'm Zach from Wolves in Finance. Thank you for watching.